Hey guys, what's up? Chainer here again, and today we're going to look at a Greater Rift build for patch 2.4. So this is the PTR, and yesterday I managed to clear Greater Rift 83 with a Furious Charge Raekor build. And I think this is going to be one of the better, if not the best, Greater Rift, solo Greater Rift builds for Barbarian this patch. So yeah, let's get into it. First off, we're using 6-piece Immortal Kings. So standard stuff. Ancients last until they die. Reduce the cooldown of Wrath of the Berserker. Call the Ancients 3 seconds for every 10 Fury you spend with an attack. We're going to be dumping Fury with Boulder Toss, which is going to keep our Wrath of the Berserker permanent, and that's basically, one of the reasons we use it. The second reason is 250% increased damage when you have both Wrath and Call of the Ancients up at the same time, which is going to be always. And then we're going to be using 4-piece Raekors. So now the 2-piece is Furious Charge refunds a charge if it only hits one enemy. So this is really good against the bosses, basically. And the downside is that bosses that spawn adds kind of erratically, like if you charge the boss and you hit one of his adds, it could take away a Furious Charge charge. So there's a lot of boss fishing when it comes to this build, and we'll get into that a little bit later on, but there are multiple bosses that are doable. It's just we have a kind of small pool of what bosses are good, but this build is really good for the Rift itself, and you don't have to fish as hard to get the right Rift so much as the boss. Alright, so Furious Charge gains the effect of every rune, deals 300% increased damage. The 4-piece, pretty standard, just more damage. We're going to be using Ancient Parthon Defenders, so each stunned enemy within 25 yards reduces your damage taken by 12%. This is generally like what's going to keep you alive in the Rift itself. You need to make sure that you have big density around you so that you're stunning things and you're getting that damage reduction. Once the density wears down, or once mobs become immune to your CC, you're very, very squishy and you'll get one hit by almost every attack in the game. But there are ways to work around it. So alright. Next up is Focus Restraint Rings. So our generator is going to be Furious Charge, so we get 50% increased damage whenever we use a Furious Charge. That's always going to be up. And the second one is a Spender. When we use a Fury Spender, we'll get another 50% increased damage, and that is going to be our Boulder Toss. So our Boulder Toss already has two purposes. It's going to keep both our Focus Restraint buffs up, and it's going to lower the cooldown on our Wrath of the Berserker so that we could keep that up permanently. We're also using Life Per Fury. So I have Life Per Fury on my belt, and I use Bloodthirst passive. So my Life Per Fury, what are we at over here? 2700 Life Per Fury. So whenever I have 161 Fury, whenever I dump Fury, I'm gonna heal for like almost 400k or 500k health or something like that. I don't know the exact number right now off the top of my head, but it's about half of my health pool. And I have about 1 million health, which is something I'm still playing around with the numbers. By the way, if you're interested in my stats, I'm not going to talk about them so much in this video. Go check out my guide on Diablo fans. That way, if there's like a stat I want to tweak here or there, I could just make adjustments on that page. Alright, so then the last thing we have Mara's Amulet. This one makes you immune to poison. So when it comes to bosses and boss fishing, there are a few bosses like the Choker. The Choker has a melee physical attack, but he rarely uses it, and it's very weak, so it doesn't one-shot me. So this means if I get the Choker, I could just spam my charge on top of him without having to worry about dying. The only thing that's bad about him is his adds could get in the way of my charge and reduce my charges. Alright. This is a physical build. Yeah, you generally want to go physical because your boulder toss is physical, even though it's not a lot of damage. I mean, why not go physical? And we are using diamonds on our gear for all res, diamond in the helm for cooldown reduction. Now we got cooldown reduction there, and we got cooldown reduction in our paragon, which gives us about 20%, a little over 20%, and that will make Furious Charge an 8-second cooldown instead of a 10-second cooldown. And each mob that you hit with Furious Charge, because of the Merciless Assault rune, the cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds. So if you had no cooldown, you'd have to hit 5 mobs to reset it. With this 20% cooldown, you only have to hit 4 mobs to reset it. So the really bad number of mobs to get is 2 or 3 mobs. If you have 2 or 3 mobs, you can't really reset your cooldown. So that kind of sucks. Alright, now in the build itself, we have Call of the Ancients together as one. This is just damage reduction, pretty standard. Your Ancients will take 50% of your damage. They can die here and there, but I don't find them dying too often, but just keep an eye on the corner of your screen. Make sure they're up. Ancient Spear Boulder Toss, like I said, this is our Fury Dump. It has 3 purposes. It heals you, it resets Wrath of the Berserker, and it procs half of Focus Restraint. Sprint Marathon. Now, yeah, it's kind of weird, but we use Sprint in this build, and that is because I forgot to go over the cube, but in the cube we're using Standoff, Vile Ward, and Royal Ring. So that's, I mean, the Royal Ring is pretty obvious, I think, but Vile Ward, Furious Charge, deals 35% increased damage for every enemy hit while charging, pretty standard. But Standoff, now this is an old weapon that kind of got revamped and got this bonus affix added onto it. Furious Charge deals deals increased damage equal to 250% of your bonus movement speed. So Sprint giving you 40% increased movement speed, that's like 100% damage. So we're gonna try to keep our sprint up as much as we possibly can to increase our Furious Charge damage, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But we also got Battle Rage Bloodshed. Battle Rage Bloodshed, whenever you crit, it procs, a little circle damage. Also increases your damage by 10% and critical hit chance by 3%. Battle Rage Bloodshed, pretty standard. Furious Charge Merciless Assault, went over that one already. Wrath of the Berserker Insanity, 50% increased damage rune, Wrath of the Berserker. And then over here we have Rampage, increased strength 1%, 25 times whenever you kill enemies, last 8 seconds. Standard stuff. Ruthless, deal 40% additional damage to enemies below 30% health. Berserker's Rage, deal 25% additional damage while near max fury. And Bloodthirst, which is going to give you life per fury, which is going to make Ancient Spear heal for more. Now it is important to get max fury in your paragon. I do put a little bit of vitality in, still playing around, because in this run I got Zoltan Cool, and when he meleeed me, he got me down to like, his melee was hitting me for like 90% of my health. So he wasn't one-shotting me, which is all I need, but the higher up I go, I might need 1500 vitality instead of 1000. It's just something you have to play around with and kind of, depending on the content you're doing. And the rest into the strength, obviously, everything here. Alright, so that is the build, the gear that I'm using. I'll kind of highlight over the gear really fast. If you want to look at the stats that I'm currently using, you could just pause the video. I am considering working with a little more area damage, but this is just what I have for now, especially on the rings. Like, these are just the rings that I have right now. I don't have area damage trifectas. And those are the stats. Now we're gonna, instead of going right into the Grift clear, I want to talk about a few techniques, because this build has a lot of things that you need to be doing. So like I said, you need to be keeping sprint up all the time, and there is an animation cancel with this build. So if you're just to charge regularly, like this, I'm just going to charge on top of my character. At the end of each charge, there's an animation where you see a frontal cone kind of go out, and the Barb throws his arms back, and there's a way to, you know, get rid of that part of the animation, allowing you to charge like 2 or 3 times faster. So this is just charging regularly. So you see that frontal cone and he's throwing his arms back. I'm gonna have to wait a little while for the charges to reset. But what I have here is I have force move bound to my mouse wheel. Now my mouse, I have a Logitech G502, and this mouse has a ball bearing mouse wheel, which means I could just spin it like a skateboard wheel. But yeah, force move is just in your key binding options. There's force stand, but that's not what you want. You want force move, and just click it, mouse wheel down, set it like that. Ugh. Alright, so now I'm going to show you what it's like when you're spamming your force move. So now, if you hold down force move, it's not going to work. You actually have to get a force move off at the end of the charge. So while you're charging, so if I were to charge from here to here, I obviously can't cancel that animation as my character's moving. The idea is to cancel the animation after your Barb is done charging. So in order to do that, as soon as your Barb hits the end of the path and then starts to lift up and you see that little animation, you need to hit a force move, and that'll break you out of that animation. So by putting force move on my scroll wheel and spinning my mouse wheel, you can see how often I could cast a force move. So the idea is, what I do is I spin my mouse wheel and then I hold down Furious Charge. And you can see how much faster that is compared to before. So I'll just wait for the Furious Charge to cool down again, and I'll show it to you one more time without the force move, so you could kind of see how much slower it is. Now, I guess you don't really have to bind it to your mouse wheel like I do. Like, you could just spam it. So if you had, you know, 2 keys, you could spam something, put it on your spacebar, and just spam your Furious Charge and your spacebar at the same time. It would just be a little more annoying. I find it comfortable with the mouse wheel, with this particular mouse that I have. But here it is again, without animation canceling, without spamming force move. You could see that delay in between every charge. Now, when I do it again with the force move animation cancel, you won't see that delay in between the charges. So just waiting for this to cool down. And now this is again with the animation cancel. And you could kind of see how much faster it is. Also, you're not going to be able to cast as you're charging through things while you're in the animation of the pathing. While you're in this animation, you're not going to be able to cast your sprint. You're not going to be able to cast Battle Rage, Wrath of the Berserker, or whatever, even though they're off GCD skills. It's just something that came along with this patch. I don't know why it's like that, but it is. So every 3 seconds, what I do is, if I need to reapply my Wrath of the Berserker, I reapply my Wrath, and then I pop my Sprint. If I need a Battle Rage, I pop Sprint and Battle Rage at the same time, and then I dump my I dump my Fury with Boulder Toss. So what I'll have to do is click my sprint like a split second before I throw down the boulder toss, because if I get the boulder toss off first, it's gonna take all my fury away, and then the sprint's not gonna go off. And this could take some finesse, because if you cast your sprint a little too early while you're still in the charge animation, the sprint's not going to go off, and then you're going to go for that split second after, you're going to go for that boulder toss, and you're going to dump all your fury, and what's going to happen is you didn't get the sprint off, but you got the boulder toss off, and it kind of screws you up. And this is still happening to me from time to time. It takes a lot of finesse. So that's just how you do it. Every 3 seconds, since you're stopping to cast the sprint, and the sprint is off global cooldown, so you could literally cast it like a millisecond before you cast your boulder toss. You could basically cast them at the same time. So you get those two abilities off at the same time, because you'll get 5 seconds of buff for focus restraint with boulder toss, but you only get 3 seconds of sprint buff for your standoff. So if you're gonna stop to cast your sprint, and then stop 2 seconds later to cast your boulder toss, and then 1 second later to cast your sprint again, like, it doesn't make sense to keep stopping back and forth. So every time you stop, you just get both of them off, and then charge for 3 seconds, buff up again, and then charge for 3 seconds, and just kind of keep your wrath and your battle rage up, and if you need to, your call the ancients kind of in between. And yeah, that's about it. So let's take a look at the Greater Rift. Now, I don't think this rift was too special in any way. Like, you know, this map right here isn't that great. The mobs were kind of okay-ish, but this build just has so much damage, and it could really handle the low HP mobs so well. Like, look how fast these low HP mobs die. And this is on Greater Rift 83, which is pretty high up. The downside to this build, like I said, is it's extremely squishy. So you'll die a lot, but, you know, you have enough damage to clear really, really high up. And you also are really fast, and you could skip through mobs very easily with this build. So if you don't see a pack that's worth a good amount of progression, you could just skip right through it. You will, with this build, get mobs pretty low, actually. And you'll find that you'll just kind of have to skip them. And what you're also looking for, you'll have to skip them. I'm getting ahead of myself. You'll have to skip them because if you don't have enough density around to reset your charge, or to keep Ancient Parlin Defender buff up for defense, then you're either gonna blow your charge and you're gonna put your charge on cooldown, or you're gonna die because you have no Ancient Parlin Defender defense buff. And what you're looking for with this build is you're looking for like kind of pre-made density, and this is one of my favorite maps for this build: Spider Caves and Ariat Crater. But Spider Cave seems to be really good because I could charge around this tile, and I could start to get the mobs to kind of walk to me in the center, like you see I'm doing right here. And so another thing you kind of have to judge is when something is defensively just too much to handle. So in that situation, those mobs just had certain affixes, things like reflect damage, like you see right there, really bad. You have to be really careful with that. Once this density starts getting a little thin, I could die very, very easily. Because you could already see what it's doing to my health, how it's just ticking me down. The less and less mobs that are there, the more and more damage that's going to do, and it's eventually just going to one-shot me. So as soon as that density started to get a little low, you know, I killed what I could kill, and I just got to move on. But actually one of the best rifts that I found was a Spider Cave with Zombie Seraph, and it's just the way that zombies kind of spawn. Like, zombies are very, very slow moving mobs, so getting them all pulled together in this build that doesn't have a pull, like we don't have Ancient Spear, we don't have Wrenching Smash to pull everything in, don't have any of that stuff, can't really fit it in. But if you get, like I said, if you get really high density Zombie Seraph on a spider cave, just the way the spider cave spawns mobs in certain positions, it'll spawn like 20, 30 plus zombies all in a tight clump in like one screen, where you could just charge to them, charge like 2 or 3 times, and everything blows up, and then go to the other side of the screen and just kind of work your way around the screen, killing these big dense clumps of zombies in a few hits, because you could see the kind of damage that is there, and especially if you get that density. So that seems to be one of the best. As you can see, I'm kind of throwing down the sprint and then a boulder toss right after. When you get bad affixes like that, sometimes you could stay in like I did. I stayed in, killed as much as I could, and then once the arcanes and the frozen started coming up, that's when I left. So try not to get, like, sometimes I get a little greedy, like, oh, there's a 0.8% mob left and he's almost dead, like a couple more hits. But if you stay in and you wind up dying, it's not worth it. And once that density gets low and those really good progression mobs are left over, you usually can't really do much about it. So over here I was thinking I got a shield and I got 2 yellows, but after I thought about it for a couple seconds, I realized that it wasn't worth it. I probably wasn't going to be able to finish them off. They were going to be left uneven, so I decided to just take it into the next rift. So over here again, these spider cave tiles are just really good, because you can see how I'm just kind of charging around from one side to the other, kind of meeting back up in the middle and getting all those mobs to just walk into the center. Although maybe I should have used a little more of that shield working on the elite packs. Shield is really, really good in this build, because being able to spam charge big packs of mobs or even elites and stuff is just really good. Your DPS output is insane when you don't have to worry about anything defensively. You don't have to worry about your positioning and stuff like that. Because all these mobs right here, all the big maggot broods, basically one melee hit from one of those and I'm dead. Another technique to avoid getting hit by melees that could one-shot you is to spam charge on top of them until they become immune to your CC. And then once they become immune to your CC, charge to another pack, like a screen to the left or a screen to the right, and start CCing those mobs. Those mobs will body block the other mobs away from you, so they can't get into melee range to one-shot you with their melee. And the mobs that you're on are CC'd, and when those mobs become immune, then you move back to the mobs that you just left. So that's one blue pack down, and that yellow is almost dead. So that shield worked out pretty good. Made a lot of progress there. For some reason, I got stuck there. I'm not really sure what happened. I went to charge through it, and I think the little hole in the floor kind of made me get stuck next to a few mobs, and I got killed. But yep. You always want to skip, obviously, these little low density tiles, even if there's a little bit of mobs here. So that's a nice conduit pylon. You do want to group the mobs up as much as possible, but you don't want to give the mobs too much time to throw out bad affixes, because there is an arcane there, and this was like super dangerous. Looking back on this part of the rift, I'm surprised I lived through everything, because there's reflect, there's arcane, there's fire chain, there's mallet lords, maggot broods, so many ways for me to die here. But I just kind of tried to stay to the outside, not really risk too much. And this is where I made another mistake. I did kill that blue pack over there, and then I had another blue pack that was almost dead, but I was at 97%, so all I needed to do was pick up those orbs. But not something I really saw at the moment. But as you can see, those two blues right here and here, they're like one hit away, but they're fire chain, arcane enchanted. And then we have another yellow pack right there. Still, you know, we have decent time. Scoop those orbs up, spawn the boss. Thank God. And now we got Zoltan Cool, which isn't a poison boss, but is a doable boss. His melee doesn't one-shot me. With this boss, you just have to watch out for the tornadoes. You have to watch out for the avalanche, which is something that kills me like twice. His melee I could survive through, so I don't have to worry about his melee too much. And there's a specific technique that I used on this boss, even though this was my first time fighting this boss, so I was kind of figuring him out as I went along. And the technique that I used with this boss is to spam charge on top of him until something dangerous came or he became immune to my CC. Basically, if he casted a tornado next to me and it started coming too close to him, what I'd do is run away from him, just get far away, and then he would teleport on top of me. So by the time he teleported on top of me, he would no longer be immune to my CC. So when he teleported, I could spam charge on top of him and keep him locked down. So with the animation cancel and just spamming on top of him like that, you can see how fast my charges are going off. And eventually, towards the end, I think I was hitting him for over like 150 bill crits or something like that. So we could see he'll just teleport right on top of me, and now I could just keep him CC'd. He got that tornado that kind of went over his character. He teleported on top of me, and now I could charge him again. And there's that avalanche, which you got to be very careful with. I think the second time I died to that avalanche, though, I think I CC'd him when he started to cast it, and it went away. And then as soon as he broke the CC, it instantly just came down. Because over there, I saw, you know, it started, like it appeared, and then I had a few seconds to get out of it. I just didn't. I don't know why. I kind of stayed in it. Just wasn't paying attention. I shouldn't have died there. So he has too much stuff around him. That kind of sucked. As soon as he teleported on me, he casted that tornado. So just make him teleport to me, and essentially you could get rid of those tornadoes and all that bad stuff. See, that avalanche just kind of came down really quick. But now that we got our stricken applied, he's starting to take some serious damage, so pretty safe here to just, you know, keep kiting him and hitting him and kiting him and hitting him. That's another thing that's weird is, like, I think if you die with the boss like directly on top of you, like with this boss or Saxtress, they keep spawning their tornadoes when you're dead, and especially Saxtress, like she'll spam her tornadoes one after another. Sometimes if you don't get far enough away, like, he's not going to teleport on top of you. But already hitting for over 100 bill from what it looks like. Got to play it safe here. Wouldn't teleport on top of me, but... And that looks like it. Yeah, 149 bill. And there we go. That was Greater Rift 83. The Furious Charge build for patch 2.4. Really fun build. Pretty challenging build to play. Furious Charge has always been that way, but yeah, this patch is looking pretty good. Enjoying it. Anyways, I hope you guys liked the video. Hope it was helpful. If you want, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, it'd be much appreciated. You could always come check me out on twitch.tv/trainerfails, where I stream live. And yeah, that's about it. See you guys later.